Greetings and welcome back to Fun with Dashcams. This is the 7th installment in the series, and I've titled this the Ouroborous. For those of you who are not familiar with what the Ouroborous is, it's the symbology of the snake eating its own tail. In other words, a mythological symbol of completions. Goes back to very ancient cultures and societies, and it is the idea of completion, and it's symbolic of exactly what this little video series has been about. We started from the beginnings of what's a dash cam, evaluating, look at all these different multi-camera systems, and we've been building up to not the final video in any series that I'm going to post, but at least for my personal project that I had done many months ago, was to build my own system, and that's why I put it bringing it together to build my system. So now I'm actually going to get into the particulars of what drove me to design the system, what I was trying to accomplish, some hurdles I overcame, and some hurdles that I never could. And you can use this as lessons learned when you're rolling your own. So the models we're going to review in this are the ones that I ended up selecting. I alluded to that in previous videos. The camera that I decided I was going to use in my car, but it's with a twist. This is a single lens front-facing camera. However, in the right application, and I've talked about this in the past, you can pull off some things. The features, I'm going to cover what I had wanted and how I did it. I'm going to cover the good, what I was able to accomplish, and how I was impressed by it. The bad, what I could not accomplish because of some things I discovered while I was doing it, and some not so ugly things that came out of it. So the features. Now this is a laundry list. Most people are going to say, I want a camera that records. I was a little bit more specific. I took this on as kind of a hobby. After I bought the X3000, I started watching a lot of videos. It actually was the videos from the asteroid over Chelyabinsk, Russia, that really inspired me, because I said, hey, wait a minute, I've seen these kind of things before, and I started looking at some other videos and realizing that I had seen video footage from a camera that actually I'd seen on YouTube probably back in 2010, and I was trying to figure out where it was, but at that time there really wasn't a whole lot out there. Well, in 2011, 2012, that's when dash cams really started to hit the Russian market, and that's when a lot of your Russian dash cam videos started getting put together in compilations, and that's how you can find them everywhere now, because they're so pervasive over there because of insurance fraud and other things. So doing a lot of research on my own, realizing that you can't just pick these things up here in the States. Even now they're becoming a little bit more prevalent. Now you're starting to see some offerings. They're starting to kind of come around to retail, but they're still very much a boutique item. Most people are not going to know or realize that they can get these things. So there's not really much of a demand because there's not a lot of knowledge about it, and the fact that you can use these and that they are effective. And I'm going to follow up in the Part 8 series of actual examples that I've recorded or have been situations I've been part of, to show the power of the dash cam and why it might be important for you to have it. And when I say examples, I'm providing real-world examples that I've recorded of the story that I know from first-hand experience. So what are the things that I wanted after doing all this research, looking into the cameras, and actually having purchased a few and starting to play around with them? You've heard about some of my experiences with the Garmin and all that. Is I decided that I wanted something that was 140 degrees. That seemed to be a pretty good middle road for a very wide view angle from whatever direction, with high def, to give you good clarity, but still to not smudge it out so much that it just distorts the entire image and turns into a big fisheye effect. So I centered in. I wanted, but this is the kicker, I wanted dual 140 degree angle, both front and rear, with 180p recording, which at the time, that was pretty much the highest offer. There were some cameras offering the 20,000, I mean the 2,000 plus, but they were very prohibitive. And really, when we get down to the last point, that's what really drove this. I wanted something that was very clear day night and actually had good audio, not tinny, not washed out, not sounding like you're yelling through a pillow in a tin can, but something that was passable, and that would actually pick up maybe conversation within the car or outside the car in the event of an accident, to log the event. I wanted a solid permanent mount. I didn't want anything that was going to fall off because of the heat. I'd already had my experience with the X3000 or the R300 when I first got it, and others. Here in this part of the country, it gets very hot in the summer, and so things fall off. I wanted an integrated antenna for GPS and for GPS logging, because what reason I wanted the GPS was I realized one of the features was an overlay. So I wanted to have the ability of a time date stamp, GPS, and a speed overlaid in the video, and that right there cut down my options considerably. There were plenty of ones that were solidly mounted. There were lots of ones that had GPS, but when I said I wanted a timestamp on the video itself, not just a GPS log, but actually have it show up in the video, that's what started to really guide. It started to really winnow out the herd, more or less. Thin the herd, excuse me, and really narrowed my choices a lot. So given this plus, I wanted something that was fairly small, something that wasn't going to be in the view of the driver, and that's for legal reasons. In my state, you're not really supposed to have anything that could distract the driver, anything that's blocking the view from the front window. Other states don't really care, or it's not enforced, and where I live it's really not enforced that much, but it's about a $110 fine citation if somebody really wants to be a stickler about it. More to the point, I want to have a full field of view of the road. I don't want something distracting me, blocking my way. I tried using cell phone mounts on the windscreen, and that worked, but I went through several of them before I finally found a stable one. But even then, it was still something that was right there. It was handy to be able to mount it up near the mirror, so I could have like my GPS using a cell phone as a GPS unit using Google navigation. And that was really cool. So I could just look up and there's my GPS, there's my rearview mirror. So everything is within sight. But I was going for the aesthetic here. I didn't want anything really terribly visible. I wanted to be able to remotely download. This was kind of a boutique thing, and it was really hard to. It was easy to accomplish because mini USB is a very common type of port. But some of the cameras I was looking at that really would have fit the bill didn't use UPS, and they didn't support the data on it. So that kind of, I didn't want to, and that was the goal of this, was I wanted to be able to have a UPS cable run remotely where the other cables were going to go, where I could plug in a laptop and didn't have to pull any cameras or extract any SD cards. That was a particular objective of mine, was so I could just do it without having to remove anything. I wanted automatic recording, of course. All dash cams by design should be doing that. Yet I wanted manual control of the power. A dash cam by design is you plug it in, it starts recording. Well, I wanted to be able to have control over when these things were on and when they're not, when the car was on or not. In the original car, I actually had to do this. I originally put the cameras in the car because, and the power port actually always had power. I had problems with it. If I had left anything plugged in overnight, it might actually drain my battery to the point I can't start the car in the morning. So I had to be really careful with leaving anything plugged in. So that kind of drove this. My new car, everything shuts off, but still I needed to have the ability to split power, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. Also, because I wanted manual control, I wanted the ability to remotely reboot cameras. I found that after getting a couple cameras, I had mounted them all over the car playing around, is sometimes they would booger up. And while I was driving, it was a real pain in the ass to have to pull over and reset something. So I wanted to be able to actually power it down and remotely reboot it, or just shut it off if it's flaking out, without having to unplug anything, without having to pull over off the side of the road when I'm driving 60, 65 miles an hour down the highway. It's kind of hard to do this, and especially if you have a camera that's just going berserk. I wanted the ability to just shut it off, or at least let it bleed out. And my main driver was, it wasn't going to cost more than $300. That's what I had budgeted for it. So I started looking for different systems, and that's where we get into the discussions in previous video series about, different multi-camera systems. So really what I was looking for is one in the front, one in the back, to be able to record a wide angle to capture the majority of what's going on around the vehicle. The sides of the vehicle, not much you can do about that, and that was outside of the scope. But the ability to capture most of what's going in front or behind is what really led me towards dual camera systems, little DVRs. And I quickly discovered a problem is that when I started looking at anything less than about $400, you started to get into that $150 to $200 segment. And the features started dropping off. Like you had to trade 720. I actually found a couple of one or two 720p dual channels, but couldn't find anything for below $300. So this was the challenge. There was no full HD, no full 1080p camera system that gave me two cameras or more, that also had GPS, that also had the ability to do the overlay, the GPS data and the speed and all that, which cost below $300. That just really did not exist. But how did I fix it? I just decided to roll my own and get a couple of forward-only dash cams. So with that started limiting it out quite a bit. I basically threw out the dual channel DVRs and started focusing on forward-facing cameras, and that really did help with the solution. And what I ended up picking was the what they call the original 0801. There's a guy named TechMoan that does an excellent review on this, so I'm not going to cover all that. But I am just going to cover the build out of my system. I ended up getting two of the cameras, and I'll cover the reasons in particular why I chose this, and also what was a gotcha for me. I liked it because it did have an Umbrella chipset. It's the same series of chips that run a lot of action cams, notably the GoPro, but they use a more recent one, but this is like the original. It has the Ovation 2710 CMOS, a very nice CCD. It has a GPS dock, which is this thing right here. It supports GPS, and this is the actual GPS antenna. You've seen other examples of GPS antennas, and you've seen an example of a system that has integrated, the Dashcam 20. Well, I wanted it integrated. I didn't want something hanging out, I didn't want extra cables. I really just wanted one cable, one power cable or whatever to go to this thing. Really the ultimate goal was one USB cable, and pay attention to that. Because I wanted to be able to give it power and be able to pull data, let it go into USB data mode, mass storage mode. But I quickly discovered after getting two of these, and I needed to get two micro SD cards. So I could not get an integrated data storage, so I had to end up getting split data, data in one camera, data in the other. When I got the cameras, I started playing around with them and quickly realized that this is for power only. So if you look right here, this view, this is the top of the camera. This is what interfaces with the dock. You have USB here. This is the prototypical power data port. This is an AV port. It's actually standard AV. On the bottom it has HDMI and the SD slot, and there's the main power button right there. It has about a 90-degree ratcheted turn, very solid, very nice, and it's a very stable platform, very, very popular, and has been. And they've released the 0803, the 0805, and now the 0806 recently that have just increased the capabilities of the CMOS and plussed up on the processor. Now it runs an A7. But this can be had for a reasonable price. At the time, you could pick these up for about $115 when I got them, and I got two of them. So that right there already put me at $230. So the rest was accessories to bring it all together. Solidly mounted, could adjust it, and it's very discreet. The whole thing is about that big. The actual camera is about that wide. It's shaped like a bullet. That's why they used to call it the bullet. So anyways, in playing around with the camera, I quickly realized that the GPS dock is power only. So in order to get data and power to the unit so that I could actually power it up, get the GPS, but then be able to turn around, shut them off, and put them into USB mode so I could extract the data remotely without having to change anything out, without having to pull an SD card or dismount the camera from the dock, and it can be removed very easily. I didn't want to do that. I never wanted it. I didn't want it to move because, you fiddle around with something, it'll break. So that led me to say I'm going to need, four mini USB cables, 1, 2, times 2, so 4 total. I'm going to need 4 USB extenders. I was going to, and then I opted for this because this was part of the plan originally, was to get just 2 cables and run them through the GPS so I could pull data or give power, and I was going to run it using just standard mini USB to a 12-volt USB adapter, and I was going to be done. Well, I discovered that I could not, so that quickly got nixed, and I'll cover that in a second. So I ended up, but I did need to get the ability to power the thing up and to control it. So I got something kind of like this. 12-volt AC adapter. It expands out, plugs into an available power port, and gives me 4. Now the one that I have running actually has 3, but this was one I was using to play around with the dash cams when I had them, when I was messing around with them in the car originally. I had multiple cameras in the car at the time, and as you can see, I had it Velcroed so I could remove it and readjust it. Had some other stuff tied to it because it was shoved back under the dash, and I didn't want a bunch of cables falling, so this kind of was cable management. I could put the extra cables here and attach them to that and keep them under the dash before I put the final system in. So there's my multiple channels of power that I could turn on and off, so I could then reboot a camera as needed, or just shut it off completely. And this is kind of the end result of what I did. Now this picture captures what I was trying to do. There is a dash cam here. It is recording out the front window at 1080p, and the only way you can tell it's there is because I have this little tiny cable that you might see in the picture. Now if I had done it the way I'd intended and have to use 2, I was going to be having 2 cables run, but I just decided not to. It was more a pain than it was worth. So, like I said, and this pretty much encapsulates what it was. I don't have anything mounted on the dash, don't have anything mounted on the window that you can see. This is from the driver's seat looking towards it. This is from another angle, actually looking from the side, and there you can see where I've mounted it directly behind the mirror, so it completely covers it. So even if the screen is activated, it's only on for about a minute, and I can't see it because it's blocked by the mirror. So at night, when the thing fires up, very unobtrusive. And in fact, the little LEDs, the charging and recording LED right here in the corner, can't see that either. I can maybe see a little bit of shine off the window every once in a while, but pretty much I can't see anything. It's really out of sight, out of mind. And you also notice with this placement, with the sunscreen right here, it can't really be seen that well, not from the outside. And this is how I mounted the power. I use 2 of the switches, and then I have a third to play with. I've got 2 accessory ports here. This is actually for the spare tire, the Fix-A-Flat kit that came with the car, and then I had 1 additional accessory port, and that's what I used to split off of it. And I use this for all kinds of things. But the first 2 are dedicated to the cameras, always to be on when the car starts. But if I need to turn them off, flip them to the right, and they shut off. So what did I accomplish? I was able to get, because of the optics of the camera, which you can look at reviews for the 0801. There's a ton out there, but I will post some video just to show a couple pictures of the setup, and road video, of course, like I always have been. 135-degree angle on the lens gives with 1080p. I get audio and video, and this accomplishes my 360-degree philosophy. I was able to accomplish the date, time, GPS location, and speed overlay. That's what particularly drove me to this little camera. There were a few others, but its size, its discreteness, I understand why it's very popular. I was rather amazed. For the $120 I spent, I got a lot more than I bargained for. For what it is at the time. They've now dropped to like 80 or 90 bucks. So, because they've been replaced successively over the last several months by new ones. But it still provides excellent, in my opinion, excellent daytime and very good nighttime performance. I have 1 or 2 videos that I will be posting of some incidents that actually happened at night in very low light conditions. The camera was still able to pick it up, so it did pretty good. It's not WDR. By no means am I going to say that this is a night vision or a low light system. It's very efficient. The Ovation CMOS CCD is very, very efficient at gathering what light is there. I have, of course, my auto record with my ability to turn things off as necessary for privacy or whatever. One thing that I did gain was redundancy. This actually happened to me in case one breaks. So a couple months into it, I had my old car, and all of a sudden I started noticing something weird in the back window, and the back in the rearview camera. The rearview mirror, and it's because the back camera kept flickering. So I tried shutting it on, turning it off remotely while I'm driving at about 60 miles an hour down the highway, and it just won't come back. So what I do is I just go ahead and shut it off. Got my remote power control right there. But the downside was the camera fried itself. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but apparently it just completely ate itself up. The optics went crazy. You would get this weird kind of staticky pattern. It wouldn't stop recording, but it would flicker as if there was it almost looked like TV static, like interference. But it was strange. But there was no interference. When I pulled it off and brought it inside, it would still do the same thing. But it wouldn't do it all the time. Only at certain times would it do it. Like when it really got warm. I guess when it ran for a while, it would start doing that. Also, it ate my SD card. It turned my 32 gig SD card that I paid for $40 at the time and put in it a SanDisk U1 and turned it into a read-only disk. So, and I accidentally, in testing it, I put another card in there. And it ate that one too, so I immediately stopped. But what was nice is the particular camera I have has 8 gigs onboard memory, so it's still able to record. I was able to get some use out of it while I was waiting for the replacement to come, and I just ordered another one that just was a one-for-one replacement. Popped it into the dock, I programmed it to match the settings from the first one, popped in the dock, and it ran fine. And that's what I have now, and I've been running those both now together for 6 months. So I now have 2 recordings, not just one recording or one place. I have redundancy, so in case not all the detail may be captured on the front, I still can glean some audio and maybe some video and G-sensor data from that camera in the back. Plus I've got GPS tracks, so I can show whether I was speeding or not. I can show my location, whatever I need to do. Of course, I may lose one of the channels in the event that one dies, but the nice thing about this is just like when this one broke, I just flipped it around. I had to do that at one point because the front camera, I needed to pull it down to play with it, so I just pulled the one off the back, stuck it on the front, and the one that I had on the front I was messing around with. And it was ultimately because I had a bad SD card. I had a really slow SD card I'd put in there. That was before I paid out the good money and got the real good SD cards, truly understanding what a Class 10 card is to a dash cam. So after I fixed that, they went back in the original position, but I still had a spare right there in the car that I still could put in the front position to record what was going on in the front. So that's my primary concern. What was it bad? Well, it kind of sucks that my AV data and my GPS logs are stored in 2 separate places. So that means that if I need to use them for whatever reason, instead of having a handy unit like you saw in previous videos about 2 camera systems, 2 camera DVRs like the rearview mirror cam, or the S3000, or the F90G, or something like that, or even the X3000 and R310, I didn't have a convenient place where both my channels were being recorded. So I have to manually integrate this. Maybe have to do some video editing, but either way, is I have to worry about 2 separate places, 2 separate cameras. I could not run the second USB cable. Mainly is because the dock was not intended to be used for data. It's only getting power so it can then actually give you GPS capability. So I went ahead and forewent that and just said to hell with it. I wasn't going to run that second cable. It's just going to be waste, and it was in the way. There was not enough clearance between the windscreen and that to really be able to put, even with an L-shaped elbow adapter, to really do anything about it. And I didn't want this second cable just hanging there. So that's maybe for a future date. For the time being, though, it's perfect how it is. More stuff is more complexity, means more can break. I do have some finicky issues with power, and I'll cover that in a second. Because, these have a tendency, my car is a small car, it bumps around a lot. They have a tendency to wiggle loose a little bit, so, or wiggle it down, because I am hanging the thing, and it's hanging at a 90 degree, so it has a tendency to slip out from time to time, and I'll lose the camera. So one may shut off, one may turn on, but the other may not. Or it may shut off intermittently because I don't have power. And it's really because I haven't permanently really secured it. But that's something that I'm going to end up doing. So, because you have more stuff, more things are moving around, more chances for things to break. And as far as warranty, yeah, when that first camera died, I just ate the $100 and something. I ended up buying a replacement by that time. It'd been a couple of months. I don't know what's October when it fried itself. By then, the cameras had come down to below $100. They were like 90 with a GPS dock and the 8 gigs internal. So I went ahead and just got a 1-for-1 replacement, paid the $90, threw away the other one. No, I actually gave it to a friend. Threw it in a plastic bag and gave it to a friend, and then eventually gave it to my mom's husband so he could play with it if he has a use for it. The not so ugly, the acceptable annoyances. I did meet the budget. I was really hoping to come down for less than $300. That was even for me, that was a little much at the time, but I was able to pull it off for $280. The majority of it was the cameras, and $30-$40 for the cabling and the 3-way plug. It was like $10 the cables. I got it Fry's on sale. The power is finicky in my current configuration, but I can reset while I'm driving, or I can shut the cameras off. That's probably the single biggest thing for me is, yes, it sucks that it's not totally tight, and but I couldn't really use the power supplies that came with the cameras because it wasn't long enough to come from the back of the car. I'd need about another 5 or 6 feet. They're like a 11 foot. They're long enough to route it around the windscreen and plug in the front, which is what these guys are intended for. But they're not really long enough to get all the way from the back seat, wrap it around, run it through soffits and everything, and then finally be able to plug into my power brick, my selector, so that then I could have control over it. And I can actually turn off the cameras for privacy. And I've had to do that once or twice with some people riding in the car when we're talking about things that I don't necessarily want recorded. So it's really nice to be able to do that. I want to thank you very much for your time. I'm going to follow this section up with a video of, it'll be some still shots of other things in the car, where the back camera is and a few other things. And I wish you a good evening, and please stay tuned for future videos.